In the far reaches of rural Missouri, buried beneath fog-choked hills and forgotten farmland, lies a place the locals dare not speak of after dark. Crowley Hollow. A narrow, sun-starved road curls into trees like a serpent, leading to a crumbling farmhouse that hasn't seen a family in over 70 years. Some say it's cursed. Others claim it's haunted. But all agree those who enter don't always return. The last known resident of that house was Amos Calhoun, a reclusive Civil War veteran who returned from the battlefield broken in ways no one could see. He built the house with his own hands in 1872. And then, one by one, his family disappeared. His wife, his children, even the workers who tried to help rebuild the barn gone without a trace. All that remained were whispers. The townsfolk tell stories of cries in the night, of lanterns swaying on their own deep in the woods, of the thick, unnatural silence that blankets the hollow when the sun dips below the trees. There's a reason maps stop just short of that bend. There's a reason no one buys that land, no matter how cheap. But in 1996, a young documentary filmmaker named Claire Morrison ignored every warning. She was drawn to the legend, obsessed, some would say, with capturing the truth behind Crowley Hollow. What she found was far worse than folklore, because the house was waiting. Claire Morrison wasn't just chasing ghosts. She was chasing answers. Her own grandfather had vanished in the fall of 1952, last seen near Crowley Hollow during a hunting trip. The official report said lost in the woods. But her grandmother never believed that. Neither did Claire. Armed with a handheld camera, a backpack full of tapes, and a journal of old letters found in her grandfather's attic, Claire drove into the hollow alone. The deeper she went, the stranger things became. Her compass began to spin uncontrollably. The road narrowed, swallowed by trees that twisted like clawed hands. The late afternoon sun disappeared too quickly, replaced by an eerie dimness that had no source. And then the house appeared. It's still like a corpse on the land, with rotting, porch collapsing, shingles hanging like torn flesh. A faded horseshoe still hung above the door, rusted and cracked in half. Claire felt her breath catch in her throat. The air was thicker here, heavy, watching. She raised her camera and hit record. Day 1, arrival at Crowley Hollow. No signs of habitation. Feels wrong here. Inside, the house was a time capsule. Furniture untouched. Dishes still on the table. A child's toy train resting mid-track, as if someone had just stepped away. Dust coated everything, but there were no spider webs. No signs of animals. No signs of time passing at all. As night fell, the temperature dropped drastically. Claire lit her camping lantern and reviewed her first bit of footage. But the footage wasn't the same as what she remembered recording. In the background, behind her, a figure moved through the shadows. Tall, slow, blurred, but unmistakably there. Claire hadn't seen anyone, but someone or something had seen her. That first night, Claire tried to sleep in the front room, close to the door, just in case. The wind outside howled like it had a voice, but inside, it was deathly quiet. Too quiet. Around 2:13 a.m., her eyes snapped open. Not from a sound, but the absence of one. The kind of silence that presses against your ears and makes your heartbeat feel deafening. And then, tap, tap, tap. She sat up. The tapping was deliberate, measured, coming from the floor beneath her sleeping bag. 3 taps. A pause. Then 3 more, as if in response to something. Claire grabbed her flashlight and scanned the room. Nothing moved, but the tapping came again. Louder, closer. She knelt and placed her ear to the floor. At first, nothing. Then a whisper, so faint she almost missed it. "Get out!" Claire jumped back, her breath caught in her throat. She tried to convince herself it was the wind or her imagination playing tricks. But then her flashlight flickered, sputtered, and went out. In the pitch black, something shifted. Not in front of her. Beneath her. The floorboards bulged slightly, as though something was crawling underneath, pushing up against the wood. She scrambled for her lantern, fumbled with the switch, and finally it sparked to life. But what she saw in that flickering yellow light froze her in place. In the corner of the room, carved into the floor, were dozens of names. Some old, nearly worn away. Others fresh. scratched deep and desperate. She reached out and brushed the dust away from one of them. W. Morrison, her grandfather's name. Claire's heart raced. It wasn't just a haunted house. It was a trap, a place that called people in and didn't let them go. And then, from the back of the house, a new sound. A door creaking open. Footsteps. Heavy. Wet. Dragging. She wasn't alone anymore. Claire stood frozen, eyes fixed on the dark hallway leading to the rear of the house. The footsteps echoed, slow and deliberate. One step drag, as if whoever or whatever was at only one working leg. She backed against the wall, gripping her lantern tight, trying to control her breathing. Then she saw it. A silhouette emerged from the hallway, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat. The figure stopped at the edge of the room, just past the threshold, where the light couldn't quite reach. Claire raised the lantern, hands trembling, but the glow barely touched his face, only enough to reveal the glint of something metallic in his hand. A rusted blade, still dripping with something that wasn't water. She tried to speak, to scream, to move, anything, but her body refused. Her mind screamed run, but her legs wouldn't listen. Then the man spoke. "You don't belong here, girl. You weren't invited." His voice was deep, strained like it came from beneath the ground itself. Claire stumbled backward, her foot catching on the edge of the rug. She fell hard, sending her camera skidding across the floor. When she looked up again, the man in the hat was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. But something had changed. The room was colder, her breath now visible in thick puffs. And the names on the floor, they were still changing. Fresh letters etched themselves before her eyes, as if invisible fingers were scratching them in. C. Morrison. She bolted, racing out of the room, up the creaking staircase, deeper into the decaying bones of the house. She didn't have a plan. Only one thought echoed in her head: get out, now. But the house didn't want her to leave. Upstairs, the hallway had shifted. Rooms that were once doors were now walls. Stairs behind her vanished, and every mirror she passed showed something behind her, but never when she turned around. And then the voice, from one of the bedrooms. "Claire, help me?" Her grandfather's voice. Claire's blood turned to ice. "Claire, help me." It wasn't a memory. It wasn't a dream. It was his voice, clear, strained, echoing from behind the closed door at the end of the hall. The doorknob was old brass, cold as ice. Her hand trembled as she reached out, every instinct in her body screaming not to turn it. But she did. The door creaked open to reveal a dust-choked nursery, abandoned, yet untouched by time. A wooden crib sat in the center of the room, rocking gently. But there was no baby. Just the sound of it, soft, wet gurgles, coming from nowhere. Claire's flashlight landed on a small chest in the corner, covered in old quilts. On instinct, she pulled the cloth away. Beneath it was a tin box, sealed with a rusted clasp. She opened it. Inside were old photographs, black and white snapshots of the Calhoun family. Men, women, children, faces stiff and pale, like death had already marked them. But then her breath caught in her throat. There was another photo. Her grandfather, standing on the porch of this very house, next to Amos Calhoun, long dead by then. And behind them, in the window, the man in the hat. She dropped the photo, backing away. That's when the closet door behind her groaned and slowly creaked open on its own. Claire turned the flashlight toward it and froze. Inside wasn't a closet. It was a narrow, pitch-black staircase leading down. The same voice called again, this time clearer. Closer. "Claire, please, before he comes back." It was him. She knew it. It had to be. Swallowing fear like glass, she stepped inside, descending slowly into the belly of the house. The walls closed in tighter with every step. The air grew warmer, wet like breathing through a soak rag. And then she reached it. A stone chamber beneath the house, old, rotted, pulsing with something unnatural. The walls were covered in symbols, scratched in chalk blood, even fingernails. In the center, a circle of bones. Human, arranged with precision. And on the far wall, shackled to the stone, a man, pale, bearded, barely alive. He looked up. "Claire." It was him. Her grandfather. But before she could move, before she could even speak, the air was split by a roar so loud and violent it shook the chamber itself. A sound not of this world. She turned around. He was back. The man in the hat. But this time his face was visible. And it wasn't human. Claire stared into his face, if you could call it that. The skin was stretched unnaturally tight across a skeletal frame, gray and sunken as if rotted for centuries. Empty eye sockets oozed a thick black sludge, and where a mouth should have been, there was just a wide, gaping hole. Endlessly deep and pulsing with a low, humming growl that rattled the bones in her chest. The man in the hat stepped forward, but his feet didn't touch the ground. He floated, barely an inch above the dirt floor, his presence bending the air around him. The lantern in Claire's hand shattered, plunging the room into darkness save for a sickly red glow now rising from the bone circle. Her grandfather screamed, not in fear, but in warning. He feeds on memory. Don't speak. Don't say your name. Claire covered her mouth. The man's head tilted slowly, unnaturally, as if studying her. Then came the voice again, not through her ears, but directly into her skull. I already know it. The walls began to bleed. The bones in the circle cracked and writhed, rearranging themselves into symbols Claire had seen before, on the floorboards upstairs. The one spelling out names. Names of the lost. Names of the taken. And now, in the center of the chamber, a new name began to etch itself into the dirt. C. Morrison. Claire shook her head. No. No. She turned, grabbed a rusted iron rod from the wall, and with all the strength she had left, smashed through the chain holding her grandfather. He collapsed into her arms, barely conscious. The man in the hat shrieked. Not like a human. Not like an animal. Like an entire graveyard screaming at once. Claire dragged her grandfather out of the circle as the stone walls began to fracture and collapse. The chamber groaned and cracked as if the house itself was alive and dying at the same time. They climbed the stairs, screaming, coughing, gasping for air as the walls trembled around them. The moment they crossed the threshold of the front door, the house let out one final, ear-splitting wail. And then it was gone, collapsed into ash and bone, as if it had never stood at all. Claire and her grandfather lay, in the clearing outside, the sky above them clear for the first time in decades, the hollow silent. Still, she looked down at her arm, bloodied, bruised, and carved into her skin just beneath the surface. A name slowly fading. C. Morrison, not claimed, but marked, because some doors once open never fully close.